Hello everyone. In this video we're going to talk about pool security, and we're going to start it off with some sad news, which is that one of the good stake pool operators was attacked, and it was a successful attack in which he lost a lot of his ADA, his pledge, and yeah. It's not good to hear that, and it's a bit worrying, but it is what it is. I'm not going to say who he is. That's not my job to do, but he has been very open in what happened, and there's a pinned message on the Telegram best practice workgroup about his setup and how this attack happened. So if you want to check that out, I encourage you to do so. Basically, he was playing with some Docker images and made it a bit too easy for attackers to get in. But on the bright side of things, the community has been very kind to him, both with words and I think donations as well. I just want to say for him, from what I read about his posts, I admire his attitude in all of this, and I'm confident that he will be fine even after what happened to him. He said that he was, very frustrated and sad about what happened, but that he's focused on, moving from frustration into the next step, and that is recovering. He took full responsibility for what happened, and it seems like he doesn't even want pity or anything like that. So I admire that, and that makes me feel positive about him being successful even after the attack. But with that being said, and in the spirit of that, let's check out some of the, I'm gonna call it basic security stuff for a stake pool that should be implemented as a security base. When it comes to security, it's pretty much nothing is 100% secure. It's all about giving the attackers more and more work. So having multiple layers of security that the attacker has to go through means that they will hopefully eventually give up. So for example, if you have port 22 open as the default SSH port, and the attacker tries to go into there, and they see that you have password authentication disabled, some may give up right there. If you change your SSH port to another port and they see port 22 is closed, some may give up there. Some may find your other SSH port, and so on and so on. The point is, make your system as complicated to break into as possible. So in today's video, we're going to do some basics, which are changing your default SSH port and disabling SSH password authentication, as well as configuring your firewall to only allow the necessary connections. So here I'm in my relay that I've configured to be like a default setting, SSH port 22, and the node is operating on 6000. So if we go here, we see the node is running, and if I do UFB status, we'll see that the only ports I have open are the port 22 and port 6000 for the SSH and the Cardano node. Now I want to change my SSH port to, you can pick whichever you want. Make it random and don't tell anyone. For this video, I'm just gonna use 2222. I don't think that's really a good one. I'm just doing it for the purposes of the video. So to do that, we can go to etc SSH, and then inside this folder we can cd in there, and then we'll see SSH config, SSHD config in there, which we can edit. So SSHD config, and here we have port, which is commented out, and by default is set to 22. So I'm going to set it to 2222 now, and I'm also going to scroll down a little bit and make sure that the password authentication, is set to no. If it's set to yes, it means you can just find the SSH port and try to SSH into there, and the server is going to prompt you for a password. And that means all the attacker has to do is run a brute force attack trying to guess every single password, and with time he can guess it. So by setting this to no, you only allow the connection to be made with your private SSH key and the public SSH key that's on the server. So that way it's much more secure, and the only way to get in with SSH is to get a hold of your private SSH key, which should be pretty secure in your local machine anyway. But again, as I said, we constantly add layers of security, so you can even put that key on a USB stick and then only plug it into your machine when you're connecting to the server. So that way, if it's not stored on your local machine, for example, even if someone gets access to your local machine, they still wouldn't find the key unless the USB is plugged in, of course. But anyway, always try to think about what can you do more. Well, how can I make it more secure? This setup is pretty good. Changing the default SSH port and disabling password authentication. I think that's definitely a basic setup that everyone should do. But there are always more things you can add to your security. So I'm gonna save this, and now I have to open my firewall for this port, because otherwise you have to be careful with this, because like if you change the SSH port but don't open the firewall, then you still won't be able to connect and you might be locked out of your instance. So I'm gonna do sudo ufv allow protocol TCP from any to any. And here's another thing, if you're connecting from a machine that has a static IP, which is always the same, it's better to not allow any other IP to make a connection to this port except the one that you use. But you have to be careful that you use this IP and it doesn't change. Otherwise, just put any to any. So any to any on port, we set 2222, and okay, we allow that. And before I reconnect, I have to restart the SSH service so that it uses the port I specified, because Yeah, otherwise it would just stay on port 22. So we do that with sudo systemctl restart SSH on Ubuntu. I'm not sure about the exact command on other systems, but okay, we restarted that. We can even do status to see that it's running. I don't know if, and there we go, server listening on port 2222 now. So that's fine. I'm just going to close this connection and open up the connection again on port 2222. And it's gonna ask me, do you trust this host, because it's a new port, and I do, and there we go. Now I'm in the server. I'm using a different port to SSH into the server. So that's it. Now I want to remove the old UFV rule that's allowing on port 22. So I'm gonna do sudo UFV. Okay, I'm gonna clear this first. Sudo UFV status numbered. So I see the numbers on the side, and now I can delete by the numbers. Sudo UFV delete. So I'm gonna delete rule 22. So number 4. Yes, and I'm gonna delete number 1. 22. Yes. Okay. And now if we do sudo UFV status, we see just the SSH again on a different port and the node on the same port. So this is the basic setup. Now later on, you might add some ports in here for monitoring purposes. But yeah, we'll cover that later on. This is the basic setup that I think it's pretty secure. I would just use a different port, not 2222, but some random port. Yeah, that's how you change your default SSH port, and make sure your password authentication is disabled, and configure your firewall. That's the basic setup. Now I invite you to look more into server security. There's it's a whole science. There's more to do. I think honestly this is pretty good. You might want to add like a fail to ban software on it, which bans IPs after they make a few unsuccessful login attempts. I don't think it's necessary because we have the SSH, but you have to always be careful. That being said, thinking about other ways of how, if you're running a cloud server, how can the attacker get into your server? For example, if they break into your email and they log in to your cloud service provider, they might get access to the console there, which is like basically connects you to the server, but still asks you for password authentication. But at that point, they can again, try to break the password with brute force. So you have to make sure your emails are also secure, like with good passwords and two-step verification and all that. So yeah, just whatever you can think of. Imagine if you were locked out of your server, how would you get access to it? That might give you some ideas of what you might do, and try to get into the attacker mindset if you want to think about how to protect your server. So I hope this has been useful. If anyone has not set up this way, like changing the ports and configuring the firewalls, please do. And also keep your wallet secure. If you do keep it on the server, which you shouldn't, make sure it's encrypted, and make sure that it's encrypted good with a good passphrase. Always have backups, and try to keep those backups, or have multiple backups, but keep everything that you can offline. So like the wallet, the pledge wallet, and the pool cold keys. So yeah, that's it for me today. I wanted to do a monitoring video, but in the light of what happened, I figured that this is more important right now. But the monitoring video is gonna come tomorrow. I'm still figuring out how best to present it in a how-to video, but it will be ready tomorrow. And yeah, stay safe, and good luck setting up. Good luck with getting delegators and everything else. See you next time.